Welcome to Beyond the Work, Tales in Multifamily Maintenance. My name is Chris Caramanica. As a 15-plus year veteran in the apartment industry, I have stories to tell, a desire to hear and tell others' stories. As a multiple committee member for NAA, a CAMT advisory board member and a CAMT holder, and a national presenter and educator, I have met and worked with so many great people in our industry at all different levels. This is not going to be a how-to podcast. This is going to be a how did podcast. We are going to explore the how did tales in multifamily maintenance. How did we do it? How did we learn from it? How did we grow? How did we decide not to do it again? Join me as we go beyond the work.
BTW, the importance of PropTech in enhancing efficiency. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Work, Tales in Multifamily Maintenance. I'm your host, Chris Caramanica. Today, I'm joined by Eric Martinez, Director of Maintenance Operations and Asset Preservation at the Afton Properties. Eric and I have a great conversation about PropTech, the transition that his company made, and the successes him and his organization have seen from it. Eric takes a deep dive into the importance of PropTech, along with some of the pitfalls and issues that they've had with their transition, as well as their many successes using their new maintenance PropTech software, and maybe where we're going as an industry. So join me and Eric today as we go beyond the work. Eric Martinez, thank you so much for joining me for Beyond the Work, Tales in Multifamily Maintenance.
Hey, Chris, thank you for having me. I'm excited about this and nervous, so thanks again for the invite.
Nothing to be nervous about. So I wanted to start for our listening audience. Please tell me a little bit about yourself, what you're currently doing, and maybe even how you got into this industry. I love hearing how, especially maintenance professionals, but anybody in this industry, how we started our journey and how we got to where we are today.
Awesome. Yeah, no, definitely. It's been exciting for me. I've been in the industry for 27 years now. I think I started when I was 18. I was looking for jobs, and I think when a family member really ended up telling me about this type of job, I said, I don't know about cleaning toilets. Man, I want to... I want to get out there. I want to go to the service. I want to go to college. I don't know about cleaning really toilets and laundry rooms, right? But I actually ended up getting a job as a porter, really, at 18, cleaning your facilities, right? That kind of stuff. I got promoted to maintenance technician after that, right? And so on. I stayed with the company for 18 years almost. Lewis Group of Companies is a large family-owned company in the Inland Empire, Rancho Cucamonga, very huge in the area, very structured. I learned a lot from there. That was my school, basically, to learn as much as you can. So great training programs, I got to say. I was there very, very long. Like I said, I oversaw total maybe 5,000 units in 8 different properties, lease-ups, a few lease-ups there, 6, lease-ups again. Large properties, 700, 800, 1,500 units. That was actually the largest one there. So it was a challenge. Imagine I think the biggest land there was 70 acres. So it was a massive amount of barbecues out on the East Coast and in California, you can say. So having to control people cleaning barbecues, and you know how that goes, right? So yeah, went from a porter to maintenance technician. I got really young into this, so I kind of figured this would be a good step once I get into my real job, right? Like at the time. And then I found a maintenance job, maintenance tech, free apartment. Are you kidding? At 18, 19, I think. That was when I first got into Lewis. I'm going to say yes, right? In California at the time, I had my own place. I was making $6.50 an hour. No, $6 an hour plus a free rent, right? So imagine me. I stayed there for 18 years after that. So it was a good experience, great experience. What else? After that, I went to a couple of different properties after doing so much obviously experience after 18 years, right? You're ready for a challenge, maybe, right? Companies see what's out there. I wanted to get into one of my goals was high-rise. High-rises, I really was into high-rises, wanted something new to learn. Not that I knew it all, but wanted to really get that feel, right? So there it was. I moved to LA, got a couple jobs there where I really focused on high-rises components, get certifications, right? All the stuff that really are a must nowadays for some of us, getting some of this education and training. So I love it, dealing with some of these massive structures. Did a couple lease-ups there for a Canadian company. They're going crazy. The Ani Group is everywhere. They're growing massively. So anyways, it was a great experience as well. So again, before that, I did a couple of regional jobs, cabinet management in downtown LA. I was overseeing maybe 15 buildings, a few high-rise I learned a lot of historic monuments. That's one of the things I'm so into, right? Every time I go to different cities, I can relate to that. I love it. I just put so much effort into it that I really like it. So it was a great experience overall. Total of maybe 8-7 years in downtown LA was a big school for me. So from old buildings to new buildings to dealing with staffing issues, having to rehire the amount of people is so tough in LA at these sometimes, right? And these days. So it was a good challenge. Great challenge. So after that, it's been now 22 years ago, I got into with Afton Properties from Los Angeles as well. Massive growing company. It's small, really started 5 years ago. So it's really very new to the industry, very aggressive ownership came in and just took over some properties and it's been grown rapidly. Like ever since 2 years I've been into it, I think they purchased 4 more sites since I've been here. So now I'm overseeing 23 sites, 3 different states, California, New Jersey, Connecticut. So yeah, I got my hands full for sure. And my title now is a regional group of maintenance operations. So I'm very, very, very proud. I like it. I love what I do. This is the real job. So for more people out there, I think they should get into it. I push my kids to get schooling degrees and all this, but at the end of the day, sometimes some of these trade jobs are very, and they're getting more and more popular out there. And more people should pay more attention to it, I think. So there.
Yeah, Eric, your story is interesting in that what I have found in talking to our industry peers and just anybody really in the industry is that you started right out of high school, that you know, there are plenty of stories like yours, but it is not the norm, especially these days. And, you know, kudos to you for working your way up from, you know, a porter cleaning those toilets to being a regional director.
Those were the worst, Chris. I'm sorry. I got to say, the tubs were the worst.
That's true. That everybody goes to toilets. They're actually not as bad as people think. It is actually the tub that's the worst part of the cleaning. So you said you have been to Afton Properties. I know them a little bit. I know that you were recently on the East Coast where I'm from. So how have you found, especially only 2 years into your role, how are you managing that new role and the travel? You know, because that is, again, not something you were akin to as a on-site maintenance person in California, is to get on that plane to fly from one coast to the other. And some of us have to deal with that challenge, myself included.
Yeah, no, I personally enjoy it. I know I have the freedom to do it now. Kids a little older now, grown, I guess. So it gives it a little, makes it a little easier, I guess, right? But it's a challenge, right? It's a bit far. So you kind of put yourself in a schedule every 3 months, checking in, having to have, meetings on teams across both ends, right? Having to communicate the same uniformity, trying to fit all properties, trying to fit all the assets right at once with uniformity as much as you can, forms and all of this. So it's been a great challenge, but I think we're overcoming. I think it's working out. The travel is there. I mean, what else? Sometimes if you want more excitement in your career, you gotta do a little bit of effort and maybe some commitment on certain things.
Yeah, and I moved around a lot in my early career as well as I worked my way up, and there was opportunities only presented themselves if I took advantage of them, right? So as I moved into different roles, it was always not necessarily a step up the ladder. It was much like you were saying. I wanted to learn high rises, so I went from a mid-rise, and then I went to garden style. Then I had stack flats. Then I had townhomes. Then I had high rises. So then all of a sudden you've checked all the boxes, no matter where they were, whether they were in rural areas or they were I've worked in major metropolitan city of New York, just like you in LA. And I hear too often from our maintenance team members, oh, I want to advance, but they're not willing to move properties, or they're not willing to move geographic locations. I have some great success stories, and hopefully he's listening right now. I have a former team member that used to work for me and then left me, then came back to me, then moved to the West Coast. Now he's back on the East Coast. And this was somebody that was an HVAC technician that, and if you're listening right now, I would like you on my show so we can talk more about it. I'm not going to say his name. I don't want to embarrass him too much, but I hope he's listening.
But his name starts with the letter E and F.
Yeah. So, he started as HVAC technician. Now he's a senior he's a senior regional maintenance manager.
and he's overseeing multiple properties, and this is somebody that I was worked with in the trenches 15 years ago. It's great to see that. And that's the kind of advancement that not everybody sees. So to hear your story, I think is really important to other maintenance professionals in the industry, because sometimes you have to go outside your comfort zone, whether that's with the type of asset that you're working at, outside your comfort zone in the city or areas that you're working in, or even being willing and able to jump on a plane to help out somewhere.
No, I agree. And with different cities, different states, that's a bit where it becomes a challenge. But I think if you love the trade, I think you just keep getting better at it. No problem.
So you said something about, and I experience the same challenges with the portfolio of assets that I oversee, is uniformity, right? Every company and organization has, a policy and procedure manual. Every organization has, best practices or, the way that everything should be done. How are you actually managing? And, you can look at it on a much broader scale. I don't need the devil's in the details, right? How are you managing keeping that uniformity when you have, I think you said 23 properties in 3 states, 2 time zones? What is your overarching way that you're managing that uniformity? Because I know I have a challenge with it.
I mean, I don't want to do the day-to-day operations. Definitely, that's not one I want to be part of. I think that's very clear. Maintenance supervisors should be their own managers, should be their own. I think one of the things is like, now sure, sometimes we'll need maintenance supervisors, but at one point you will need a maintenance manager, right? So that you can do some of that stuff around. Basically, some of this new AI stuff that's coming out, some of these platforms that are coming out, right? So I think this is some of the maintenance in the industry, I guess, that we're getting ahead, you can say, is because we're open to that, right? Learning new tools. It's not just about having the wall or Milwaukee now. Now you have iPads. Now you have a computer. Now you have a program to organize your day-to-day. Your calendar is amazing. I wish I had an Outlook when I was growing up. Well, I did. I probably didn't use it because I was a maintenance guy or cleaning toilets. I don't know. For the properties, we started from zero. We're very proud of what we've done, and Afton especially. Obviously, maybe I don't know if I'm saying names of companies, but hopefully I don't get in trouble. But it was buying different assets from different owners at one point, right? Everybody's doing their own thing. Everybody does their own best practices, right? So there's times that every company probably that I've been that we're going there trying to create that uniformity, right? There's a challenge. There's a pushback. There's a certain amount of people that they're maybe not supported sometimes, and those that's where you have to work around that. You have to be consistent. You have to say the same things with everybody. You have to play the same book. You have to say the same pages, right? Or you have to read the same lines, I guess, for everybody. Otherwise, people start getting used in different products, different flooring, different brands, different contractors, right? So building uniformity, yes, having 5 regions and starting in this case before it was 2 regions, kind of the last company. It's so important just for you to have that contact with the regional director, regional managers, right? To be on the same page, present things to them at the same time. One thing that we added to my current role added Upwork. Upwork is one of the maintenance softwares that I used this starting 2 years ago. I implemented it directly and started from scratch. And I think it was a little bit of try to get everybody to buy into it. We started with 6 properties, 4 properties at a time, I think. And then eventually we gradually got into it with the old sites using it. Now we have all this data that comes out of it, who completed how many work orders, how many turns. You got ratings from the residents that you can see now. This makes it so much easier for me. My past other jobs, I think, is where you rely on Yardi. You have all these reports. Yardi is great. It's obviously the heart of everything nowadays. But things like Upwork actually made it easier, right? Where I can just run one report for all 23 sites, and it tells me how many of those properties have pending parts. But I'm able to see that 3 of my 23 properties have 4 work orders pending since 30 days ago, 90 days ago. So that for me is insane, right? That for me is that I did not have that in the past. So I'm able to utilize that, right? So it kind of guides you what in a certain way, almost describes your maintenance supervisor role, right? I got to design the part that we're dealing with. Upwork has all the technology for you to create your own system, I guess, or your own program, I guess, or your system, I want to say. So in there, I can see who's completed. I created property inspections, monthly inspections, right? That get done every month. So now I don't have to remind anybody. They can just go in there, complete their inspections, take the pictures, whatever the case. At the end of the month, I can go and see how many of those properties reported it, right? Or completed the report or haven't done it. So at the end of the day, we send out a shout out at the end of the month. Great job for all these properties that have completed, right? They get a next, or they get a check mark, right? Depends. I think that puts a sense of pride on people so far, and people want to be really judged for what they're doing. Going back to what you said, how do we keep people, right? The uniformity and control everybody is tough. Back in the day, we didn't have a way to measure maintenance workload, literally in hours, how much workload are they completing a day? And that's very important to know, right? How many turns were completed this week? What's your average, right? How many work orders by who? And how many a month in the last quarters? So that we can shout outs or praise those people that are doing great, right? Why not? So I think that's been part of it. Obviously, quarterly meetings, quarterly inspections. So trying to be on the sides. I think one of the main things that we miss as a regional maintenance or maintenance department in general, or at least the higher management, is walking the sites. We have to be on sites. That is what it is, right? You have to have a schedule where you're there every week, every 2 weeks. I don't know how many properties you have to walk, but I'm usually on site a lot. Not every week, like I said, not to do the day-to-day work, but hey, how you doing? What's going on? Lighting, exterior lighting, garages, right? Our job mainly here is asset preservation, personally, right? So for ownership, it's a huge thing that we, as a maintenance personnel and repairs, that it's a big job nowadays. You know, I'm sure you know the amount of money we're paying for some of these jobs. Some of these contractors come in and they give us the amount of bids and larger than what they should be at times, because we don't have the knowledge enough to say, wait a minute, why are you replacing whatever X, Y, and Z, right? So I think nowadays maintenance technicians, maintenance supervisors should be proud and develop themselves so that they can become a tool for ownership or the regional or the company they're working for. I think is having, again, uniformity, right? Where you see the entire company, 5 regions, everybody sees everybody. So everybody wants to be part of our community, I think, and everybody wants to be on top. The top 3 is always the top 3. We have certain categories, the small, medium, and large size properties. So trust me, the competition gets crazy. East Coast, West Coast, 5 different regions. I send a quarterly email with the chart, leaderboard, all that stuff. So in 27 years, I've never been part of that, where wish that we put so much focus on the maintenance department, right? Where they can make a big difference. We don't make the money like the leasing staff does, but we save you the money, which I think sometimes it becomes as important.
Eric, you made so many different points in that. Let's start at the end and maybe I'll work my way back. But you just concluded by saying, we don't make the money. I said that too for a really long time, right? I have recently started to change my tune, and I'll probably talk about it in the future, is, what, we do make the money. And we make the money 2 ways. We made it in the one way that you said, which is saving money, because saving money is, definitely making money. The other thing that we don't, especially maintenance personnel, don't always think about is maintenance team members are the primary reason that residents renew. If the residents are renewing their lease year after year, and primarily because of maintenance, because they had good service, they had more touch points with the maintenance personnel than they do with the leasing professionals or the community members in the office.
Okay.
We are increasing the property's bottom line through renewals, and we are a profit generating, and many people don't feel that way, but we're starting to really get out there and start, that's one of the reasons why I created this podcast, so we could talk about this stuff. So we could talk about the fact that our maintenance personnel are income generating. It's just not as obvious. And we income generate by cost savings and renewals, which is an enormous part of our business. If residents renew, they're not moving out. If they're not moving out, we don't have the expense to either turn a unit or vacancy loss, where the property is just losing money while we're trying to get somebody in. So I would be interested to see if anybody has any surveys or studies that show, properties that have a high renewal rate, to look at those numbers against their customer satisfaction surveys, especially when it comes to resident maintenance, right? If you have a really high maintenance score and you have a high renewal rate, there is an absolute direct correlation. I know from my 15 years experience, your 27 years of experience, all the people that I talk to, there's definitely a specific correlation there. So thanks for sharing that. I do want to say that, AppWork is a sponsor of the Multifamily Media Network. They are not. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on today was because I saw an AppWork post. I follow AppWork on LinkedIn, and I know some of the folks over at AppWork. That AppWork is. There's a lot I want to talk to you about.
Sorry. We unwrestled with Sean a few times about certain things on this AppWork, and he's made it so much easier for us. Carol as well, right? Both of them. So anyway, go ahead.
This isn't really, this isn't an ad for AppWork. I mean, there's just so many different, but I do want to dig into it because there's some key things that I have seen in their user interface, their promotion, their software, and you touched on a few of them. So I think I'm going to try to parse them out a little bit that I have not seen yet in other PropTech. I have used Yardi, I have used RealPage, I have used MRI. Right in my 15 years, those are the three. I have seen a Yardi to RealPage transition happen. I learned how to do make-ready boards with MRI, right? So I've seen, a good amount. And in my role, I've seen a lot of other products. Some of the things that I'd like to see, that I've started to see, some organizations, and AppWork is one of them, is much more maintenance-focused, right? Their platform, a lot of PropTech is coming out right now that is focused on maintenance. And and AppWork is definitely one of them. The reason that I brought you on, that we even got connected today, was each quarter, I think it's each quarter, AppWork is recognizing their top 25 properties, and I know there's a lot of criteria, but they are recognizing them, and they're doing awards, they're putting out blasts through their socials, which any kind of promotion of maintenance on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, I absolutely love. So 3 of your properties were in the top 5.
Oh, yes.
For this past season. And that's how we actually got connected. I was like, so what's, there are a lot of companies using this platform. In short, why do you think it was? Is it Eric Martinez that, drove those sites? And congratulations to you, your sites, and your organization, because I know that there were physical awards delivered, and photos taken. Why do you think your team members at Afton, which you said yourself, a lot of them were acquisitions, or maybe all acquisitions, so they worked for other organizations, they used other software. Why do you think your team members are so behind the usage, and you performed so well in the last quarter?
That's a great question. Yeah, I guess I didn't realize that we had 3 out of the 5. I thought it was a out of the bigger picture, so that makes us feel really well. No, I think
I might be mistaken, but I thought it was 3 in the top 5.
Well, it's 3 of the top. That sounds even better than I think it will have a 4 or 5 in the top 15. So I like the
okay.
The
so maybe that's what it was. I apologize if I misquoted.
Over 3 out of 5. I think that's even better. No, I think it's everybody's interaction with it, right? Our regionals are they're finding out how helpful this is, right? To find out more details of what the performance of the team is, right? Maintenance wise. So everybody's checking up on their numbers, right? It's almost like a measurable way. It's actually, I have to say it, you realistically measure a day-to-day workload, right? The amount of work orders you complete during the day, and then maybe you had less work orders because you completed a turn on that same day. So now your supervisor can say, oh, I see, he completed 4 work orders today only, and then 1 turn, right? Or make ready. So at least it starts painting that your entire workload. Not only that, it helps you realize that, well, wait a minute, our guys are doing 20 work orders a day each, and we still can't complete it. That probably sounds like we need an extra person, right? An extra maintenance technician. Mm-hmm. So it helps create your case. It helps push for your case if you're the maintenance supervisor, regional, myself, if anything, to say, we do need more staff or whatever the case. So I think everybody's getting into using it more and more and more. We're adapting it. It fits to our property in this case, or every single property in this case. It's very general, where it fits all of them. So it's a great tool for us to really be part of it, create some numbers, and then get a shout out at the end of the quarter, right? Because I think out of the 23 properties, there were literally, I think it was 20 out of the 23 involved in these numbers, meaning there was 20 different properties recognized for the least amount of work orders left, the most amount of work orders completed, the most amount of turns. I can tell you who was the maintenance technician who completed the most turns in the whole company. That's how detailed it is. That's the way I think Carol, with Upwork and myself, we were able to design it that way, and everybody gets to see what everybody's doing. So it's a big, you can say, competition, but healthy competition, I think.
And that's what I've seen with some of the other PropTech software, especially when it comes to, maintenance. My biggest pet peeves have been the reporting, right? When I run a report in other software, it tells me X number of work orders that were done in that day. And then I have to go to another report to see in, probably another part of the software to see how many make-readies they were doing or how many preventative maintenance tasks. And it sounds like AppWork, and I know a couple of other people are working on it, but I know AppWork quite well, is that they've actually been able to conglomerate that information. So, Jimmy, like you said, did 4 work orders today, but he also did 8 preventative maintenance tasks, which would be a separate work order, would be a separate classification. And he did a turn, and he cleaned the grounds this morning. And so, that's one of the things I like about it. But one of the other things that was interesting to me, we're talking about these awards. And one of the big things I always see online is the gamification of maintenance, right? And full disclosure, I love games. I am the kind of person that has to be, my wife will tell you I'm a sore winner and I'm an even sorer loser. And what I have found in my career with any maintenance or technician personnel is that they like competition. They like to compete against each other. I have my regionals who are constantly on their phones texting each other about their Nspire scores or how many work orders their team completed this month or what number we got down to. And that's without a streamlined dashboard that I can look at. So how have you found that the adoption has been easier, or has the adoption of your team members, have they embraced that gamification part? Because for me, that's very intriguing.
Yes, you don't want people to utilize this or just say that we do this, but we don't, right? Like it happens all the time back in our time on site, right? All these spreadsheets and sales sheets and who follows through and who keeps track of all these and who finalizes it. And this keeps track of all of it, right? It's where so easy for us to see. Again, the one reporting, like you said, is so difficult for us to done on the admin part of it, right? Obviously, you do some training. So it was very, I would say at first, let's just say the first 6 properties, it was tough, right? It was tough where why are we doing this, right? At a certain point, is there really better? Why it's not accurate? That was a huge one, right? Sir, definitely, it was a different story back then. Once we were done with the first 6 properties, I said, let's do maybe 1 property at each region so that we can get the feeling for it, right? I think the first session, the second set of properties, those were the tough ones. And I feel for them, right? It was all new things. It was all coming at it, right? So we split the training. We kind of made accommodations so that we can make it easier for the staff. I think after the second, third group of properties, which it was 4 or 5 at a time, right? Increasing it little by little. By the time we were done with the third, fourth group, everybody was really realizing what it was doing, right? Starting to send recognition, and it's like AI product as well. So it's learning. Every comment you're inputting, right? Every conversation you're having with the resident gets saved in there versus you having to write on the work order or type it in and you already knows, right? It keeps track of the entire conversation on the length of the resident, of the lease, really, for that resident. So you're able to go back, well, ma'am, you said that back then,
right?
His documentation is all there. So yes, at first it was a little bit tough. After everybody got into it, it started to learn how to use it. I think it was a piece of cake. After that, everybody loved Carol. Training part of it was very easy. I think we finished in 6 months onboarding all 23 sites, I want to say. So now we've had it for a year and a half, maybe complete. So we've had enough data there to see the top performers, right? To make those shout outs. Names are known in the company, right? The East Coast. We got Jason Superstar over there. We got
recognition, which
that's right.
Sometimes that's just what somebody needs is a little recognition.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And it's so tough to give it to the right maintenance personnel at times. Why? Because we're helping our asset managers decide who knows the best or who is the most productive, even though they're not part of, right? How do they know how many turns Jose is doing? How many work orders, right, Fabian over there is completing? No, they unfortunately don't, but now at least they'll have a better understanding, right? And it's very clear for everybody, visibility.
That's excellent. So I want to shift gears a little bit. Thank you for talking to me. We might go back and talk a little bit more about your experience with AppWork and PropTech in general. But in my brain, I hear starting as a porter, working 27 years. This is called Beyond the Work, Tales in Multifamily Maintenance. I want a story. Give me a time that you had a really big challenge or something that you didn't know that you've done it all. You're one of the few people I've talked to that I can say has probably done it all in maintenance because you've worked your way up from a porter to a director level. Do you have any stories to share and maybe, what you learned from that as you advanced and grew in your career?
Oh yeah, I have plenty of stories.
We all have plenty of stories. We all need to write a book, but none of us have time to do it. So I still did a podcast.
But yeah, especially you, exactly, right? You somehow keep track of some of the stuff, video recordings, because I don't know, I got a bad memory. I want to remind me myself sometimes at that point, right? But no, we all had many, many experiences. I mean, you're looking at little slab leaks, right? Obviously, to dealt with like in the BMS or the BMU up in the sky on the 54th story where you have to drop with the basket, right? Having to make sure the dryer vent is clean, right? I had many times where the wind is coming down. It's too late to go up coming down from that basket, but you say, I think it's 1:30 in LA. I'll make it before 2 p.m. and the wind starts to pick up, right? And the basket starts to shake and you're controlling it. You're such a small thing compared to this massive building. So I think that was for me, was huge. I think it was being able to see the sky, the skyline and you able to control on that little basket and having to drive. It was a bit scary at times. From plumbing, right? I deal with cooling towers, boilers, right? Where you're having to deal with booster pumps for the water, domestic water, to go all the way up to your 40th floor, 50th floor. Those are the scariest things. I remember getting into that, and I would be like, oh my God, how am I going to be able to stop the water if this happens, right? So you know what? YouTube, building code, plumbing code, here I come. I had to do all of that, right? You have to ended up going to building inspections, technologies for in college and getting very familiar with a lot of that stuff, especially realizing that if a plumbing issue happens here, what happens? Wait, it has to trickle somewhere, the water, right? I actually posted something on LinkedIn that happened to me while I was in LA. It was a high-rise building and a pipe burst in the middle of the wall. It was literally 2:30 maybe a.m., 3 a.m. I'm sleeping. I lived on site, luckily. My dog was there ready to go. I get the call from the on-call maintenance, one of the buildings at the time I oversaw by 7 buildings in LA and Long Beach and stuff like that at the time, I guess. One of the guys called me 3 a.m. He said, Eric, I just got a call. There's water coming from the ceiling, yada, yada, yada. I'm heading over there, just FYI. I said, well, I'm here. I'm at the same building, so I'll meet you there. Luckily for us, literally that whole week, my entire staff and I, we've been going through adjusting pressure regulators, right? Trying to see why some pressure was not adequate for certain areas, why low pressure in other parts of the buildings, different stacks, right? So luckily for us, we were on it, right? And so it was almost training. It was almost training for us for the last month. We've been having different issues right in that particular building. So my lead tech right away and got the call me right away. I think at the time it was named supervisor too. Literally, I told him, listen, don't panic. You know what floor is it coming from? Well, it's coming from the third, what was it? I think it was 20th, right? Or 18. I said, go to the unit above. You know what to do, right? He knew exactly where to go. He went into the mechanical room. The plumbing, he shut off all the valves. By the time I got there, within literally 12, 15 minutes, he had the water shut down. We went and shut down the circulating pump. That was the last thing that happened. So we had that water shut down for within 35 minutes, right? I think that was, we're very proud of that. But the amount of damage that caused coming from the 20th floor to 4 different stacks, so 4 different units all the way down to the first floor, soaking, right? Waterfalls coming from the living rooms, you name it. It's been the gym, amenities. It was insane, right? To see the amount of people panicking. But I think the team worked well, right? Everybody got together. We were working there. A lot of people showed up. Remediation companies helped us out on certain things. But I think that was one of the biggest probably intrusions or damage that I've seen that really for a minute, I had to step back and say, all right, let's deal with this, right? Sometimes dealing with the boilers, 140-degree water, it's insane to try to stop a leakage, right? Or a major leak in the plumbing. Another thing, on a high-rise, older building, this building was 100 years old. I mean, imagine 100 years old, let's say 90 years old. Beautiful building, but the plumbing is not the same, right? I'm sure. Sure enough, hot water, my guy called me, Eric, it's bad. Sergio, what's wrong, Sergio? Don't panic. Is it bad or just bad? Is it Eric? It's
different levels. Different levels of bad.
Yeah, no, it's a big difference. I said, really? No, sure enough. I showed up. Luckily, my buildings were close to each other. Showed up there. Sure enough, the PSI coming out of the pipe is insane, right? 130, 135-degree water just to touch it and try to manage it. It was trying to find the isolation valve just for that floor. You couldn't. It was too... Right, it was just a different story there versus a brand new building previously mentioned. So it took us a while. I got burned a little. We all did, but listen, we got the angle stop in there. It was an angle stop, actually. That's what it was, and it shut out, and it was so bad. But we got it. We managed it. It was flooding entire building. Luckily, those older buildings, your subflooring is concrete. You got concrete, so less areas to go for the water to penetrate, and we were able to get it dry right within a week or so. But it was also scary. Also, I got videos of that, the tank leaking. It's just, high-rise makes me nervous sometimes. Used to, not anymore, right? Yeah, you deal with those sprinkler heads there, with the moving truck going up to the second floor. Why is the people going up to the second floor with moving trucks, right? 7-Eleven, that's the maximum height. Yeah. You should not be going
Your stories remind me of two things. So, I started in the commercial theater business in New York City, and I managed 5 Broadway theater houses in the middle of Times Square. And have you ever worked with city steam? Probably not in LA. But in New York City, a lot of the older buildings, especially when they were 100 plus, were on city steam, meaning that the steam was generated by the city of New York, pumped into the building, and that's what you would get for your heat. That was 400 PSI. The temperatures were the hottest, that I have ever had to experience. And I think on my first day at the property, we walked downstairs with the building engineer, and he said, yeah, if you ever hear the steam hissing and you think there's a leak, get out. And I said, what? It's just steam. He goes, no, if the pipe was to burst, the steam would cut you in half. And I said, okay. I never went down there again. In my entire time, I would let the union engineers deal with that. I would stand at the door. I would look around. I would, flashlight. But I was in my 20s, did not want to get cut in half. And that was just a decision that I made. And then the other story was, and you may have experienced this, did you ever have rooftop marking lights on any of your high rises, especially your 40 or 50 story high rises?
We had helipads. I had three helipads.
Oh, you had helipads, even better.
Right, all the helipads were there. They were massive. So yes, we had to go there sometimes. Yeah, I got stories for that as well. So it was.
Yeah, so we had a 40-story high-rise building right off Long Island Sound in Westchester, New York. And none of the rooftop marking lights worked. None of them. All 4 corners of the building. Not a single one worked. Well, for those of you that aren't familiar with the New York City metro area, my property was on the direct line into LaGuardia Airport in Queens. Planes and helicopters would literally fly directly over my building, and there was no marking lights. So once we identified the fact that there was no marking lights, none of my 40 team members wanted to do it. I too am afraid of heights. At one point in my life, I was deathly afraid. Now, I'm just a little queasy, right? So I had to strap into a harness, climb up an extension ladder, and change a bulb. And I'm not exaggerating, and Eric, please confirm, those rooftop marking lights are 250 watt bulbs that are about this big. So you need 2 hands to screw in a light bulb, literally. And if anybody's interested in my opening and my closing intro and outro for this podcast is actually a picture of me on that extension ladder, 40 stories above, actually it's almost 41 stories above the street when you're changing those bulbs. I quickly got over my fear of heights from that, because I said, if I can do that, if I'm stupid enough, brave enough, sorry, Mom, that you're listening right now. Yes, I did that. I don't do it very often. But those are the kind of things that we forget that our maintenance team members do, that they are the first ones to get soaking wet. They're the first ones to do something that scares them, climb that ladder or climb into a pit or walk into a room where there was a leak to happen. It could cut you in half. And I think that's something that everybody kind of forgets. They're not just team members that paint or clean. There's a whole nother realm that many of our team members have to deal with on a regular basis. Would you agree with that in your 27 years of experience?
Totally agree with it. I mean, you're some of these items you're dealing with people's lives too, right? I mean, if the hazard is that big, we're above our heads. Like, we should be calling the right people. There's times where you should be making those calls. There's times where you should be saying, oh, I don't think I know enough. Let me get an engineer, a contractor, whatever the case that you need, right? So I mean, sometimes I've seen where we had floods, massive amount of water from a LA water leak from the main street came into our basement, flooded the elevator pit, literally, right? So here we're having to trying to get all this water out, right? Having to have the elevator company on stand and having to make sure that they're there doing the safety part of it. We are part of these sometimes high rises and all of it, right? Electrical, you can get shocked. You get so much stuff that you have to deal with it. So no, our job is we have to know it's a serious job. You have to be able to manage all those things. You have to be able to realize when you need a call for help. Sometimes we don't know how much we don't know, and we just need the extra help, right? We need somebody else that's done this before. If it's for maintenance and repairs and managing and staff and budgets, call me, I'll do it. But if you're dealing with some other stuff, right, I'll call the right people. I mean, we get to deal with so much. Just like you said, it's not just repairing and all these garages. I don't know if we can talk about this, but sometimes you're dealing with residents, right? They're not in the right mindset, right? And they yell at us, they tell us certain things, they throw the trash over the balcony. You get to some things with the families, right? That they come in and they find out that can you check on their family members, and also we prepare for that. I don't know, right? I don't know if that happens to you when you have to go check in with the police, open the door, and come to find out something you did not want to see or expected to see that day. And that sometimes it's for up to companies to realize, like, well, are you okay? Get your treatment, whatever the case, right?
You're talking about mental health. There is a huge, component. I recently did a show with Kendra Butterfield, and we talked a lot about the mental health. I want to quick plug for one of my MMN podcast hosts, Mark Sharp, over at the Multifamily Mixtape, is actually doing a 3-part series. And by the time that this airs, they should all be live, or they should almost all 3, at least 2 of them will be, where he's specifically talking about mental health for maintenance. And I think it's a required listen, no matter whether you do maintenance or operations, whether you're a porter or you're a vice president. I want to give a little plug to him, because mental health is so important. It's something that is so out in the business world now, and we're really starting to in this post-COVID world, really focus on. So I'm glad you brought that up, because it's, for too long, nobody thought about the things that our maintenance team members saw, or how, the communication that they were receiving. So I think it's really important. Well, Eric, I could talk to you probably for another 3 hours, but we are both very, very busy men on 2 separate coasts. So as we wrap up, where could people get in touch with you if they want to pick your brain, or if they want to learn more about Afton Properties?
Definitely. I know I'm in LinkedIn. You can find me there, right? We're in a privately owned company there in LA, California, and like I said, Connecticut and New Jersey. Personally, you'll find me on LinkedIn probably more. I'm very adamant about that, right? I've been promoting that for maintenance staff now. You have to get your LinkedIn profile. You have to show what you got. You have to get your profile out there so people can reach out and then you can find out what's out there, right? I think that's huge of the part of the growth that we don't as a trade. We don't get too much into and we can improve in that sense. You'll get reached out by people and you realize that, if there's potential for you to go different cities, different states. The market's growing and we need maintenance technicians throughout everywhere. So, mainly LinkedIn. Eric Martinez, I'm there.
Awesome. Well, Eric Martinez from Afton Properties, thank you so much for joining me today on Beyond the Work, Tales in Multifamily Maintenance. It's a real pleasure talking to you. Next time you're on the East Coast, please, reach out. I'd love to talk to you some more, whether on screen or just a couple of guys doing a site visit.
That would be great.
Thank you all for listening today for another episode and tuning in for another episode of Beyond the Work, Tales in Multifamily Maintenance, powered by the Multifamily Media Network. Please like, subscribe, share, comment, and I'm always looking to hear your maintenance tales. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me on LinkedIn or beyondtheworktales@gmail.com. Eric, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you, listeners, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining me for this episode. No matter how long you've been in our industry or what position you have at your company or your community, everyone has a maintenance story to tell. Go to www.multifamilymedianetwork.com and leave me a voice message or share your information and we can tell your tale together on a future episode. Please check out our sponsors and like, subscribe, and follow to this podcast or video and join the Multifamily Media News Network newsletter for upcoming shows and blogs from me and the other great hosts on our network. Our stories all connect us. See you for the next chapter.